Hey, pleasant good evening to each and everyone. My name is Placinda Patterson, and today my topic is entitled The Evolution of Steel Pan. Right here, I have a steel pan and I have two sticks. You see the rubber that is on the stick? Right. So this pan is a steel pan, and this is the sound of the steel pan. I'm not a great player, but imagine walking through the bustling streets of Port of Spain. The air is filled with a vibrant rhythm of steel pan, a distinct sound unlike any other, coming from every corner. Behind each pan is a player and two sticks, banging against, sorry, banging against iron, clanging bottles and spoons, creating music that brings the entire city alive. It's a celebration of creativity and culture. But here's where the twist comes in. This incredible instrument started with nothing more than everyday objects, a bucket, a bottle and a spoon, and it later became the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. This is really a very innovative instrument. It's very innovative. The steel pan is not just an instrument. It is a testament of the resilience and innovation of the people. The people survived. They survived a cultural. They survived slavery, and this is where the steel pan grew out of. It grew out of the resilience of the people. It reflects our history and how our ancestors overcome the oppression that was instilled on them by the colonial government of that era. To understand the steel pan better, you have to understand the history behind the pan. Understand that history. Why the steel pan is so innovative. It is because the people needed something to release the energy. And when the colonial government banned pans, they started using all different types of instruments, in order to entertain themselves. So the steel pan evolved from simple items or objects that is in your kitchen, that is thrown outside, like the bottles and the spoon and the bucket, even pots and pans. This is what they use to actually play music. That became our national instrument. So it really is showcasing our rich culture, the heritage and the innovation of the people. As a native of Trinidad and Tobago, I have grown up surrounded by steel pan music. I even played mass. We even learned to play the pan in school. So I have witnessed its power, not only as a musical instrument, but as a cultural symbol that unites our nation. It is on our coat of arms. So let us tell you how much this instrument means to our people. Winston Priest Simon, he is the originator of Steelpan in Trinidad and Tobago. It came out of ordinary people who wanted to actually do something. So the Steelpan is really a part of our heritage and how we see the Steelpan movement moving forward. So today we'll explore the early beginnings of Steelpan and how ordinary objects were transformed into a musical instrument. Then we would look at the rise of the oil drums so we'll look at the rise of the oil drums and how it revolutionized Steelpan. The Steelpan, and next we will look at the Steelpan as a cultural symbol and its journey to becoming the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. So now that we understand the significance of the Steelpan, let's take a step back. We're taking a step back into the time when Steelpan was originating, back to the 1930s. From the simple everyday items to beginning of something extraordinary. During the British colonial rule, African drumming was banned because it was seen as a form of resistance, because those were the days of slavery, right? And the British ruled in our country at that time. So the British saw this as a form of resistance of the people, that drumming, because it was part of their culture. They came with that culture from Africa and the different places that they came from as slaves and so the British banned all drummings because they view drumming as a form of communication. So the 1930s, these communities started using items like bottles and cans, spoons to make music, right? Because they needed to entertain themselves. They needed to get that energy out. So they used anything that they could have gotten that could make music. So another object that they used was the tambo bamboo. The tambo bamboo. What they do, they used to knock the tambo bamboo on the ground, and that used to make music. So those were the earliest form of the Steelpan rhythm coming out of those days. These early makeshift instruments allow the people to entertain themselves and help them to keep their culture alive, because where they came from in Africa, they did have a culture. So it helped by doing this, it helped them to keep their culture alive. So the oil drums now came in the 1940s. Now the oil drum, mind you, it's a waste instrument because Trinidad and Tobago is an oil producing country. So the oil drum was readily available and it was really a great thing to use. So the oil drum was really a major leap in the Steelpan movement. So the oil drum wasn't plastic, it was metal. So it offered them more sound, louder music. That's what the oil drums allowed. The use of industrial waste oil drum, which were abundant and affordable, was a revolutionary moment. The large metal surface of the oil drum allowed for precise tuning of the drum. So Winston Spree Simon, who is the originator of Steelpan in Trinidad and Tobago, he refined the drum. He refined the drum into an instrument whereby he hammered the drum. So the drum, I'm sorry, I know this is not a demonstrative thing, but a drum is like this, an oil drum is like this. Beneath the oil drum has a dent. There's a hollow part. So he would dent the oil drum, dent it with a hammer in order to create music. And then it was a very difficult process. The process of tuning that oil drum is really, really difficult. All right, but it marked a significant milestone in Trinidad and Tobago's Steelpan movement. The next thing that we're going to look at would be the cultural symbol. Steelpan as a cultural symbol and a national instrument. That is in the 20th century. The steelpan has evolved from being on a street instrument to being a symbol of pride, to being something that came out of Trinidad and Tobago that is such a global victory for us. It is no longer a bucket or a spoon and bottle. It is now a really developed, refined instrument like any other. It became an integral part of our carnival celebration. That's another topic to speak about, but you can also look up what carnival is like in Trinidad. So pan accompanied the carnival in Trinidad and Tobago. And what came out of that as well was something called panorama, where there's a big competition amongst all the bands, different bands. Every village had a pan side, and they would practice for days on end coming up to the carnival season. They're going to practice, and they will practice for days, for months. They are practicing, making sure they know the tune very well. And then the bands will gather together and they will go to the Queen's Park Savannah and they will play, competing against each other for grand prizes. So they will learn various songs that they will play on the pan. So each band played like 2 songs at the Queen's Park Savannah where they are being judged. So this is where the steel pan came out of. So the pan really represents more than just music. It is a symbol of our creativity, the way we adapted over the years, and the cultural survival of our people. Pan is there's a diverse range of pans. We have things like the tenor pan, the bass pan. The tenor pan is the sweetest music. We have the guitar pan, we have the bass pan, the double tenor. So there's a various amounts of different pan that create different music. It's really, and I'm telling you today, it is still even growing stronger and better. The United Nations have marked August 11th as World Pan Day. So this says a lot. it says that we are on the global map. Steelpan is on the global map, and it is important that the world recognize the originator of Steelpan, and that Steelpan plays an integral part in helping people emotionally, right? So we, oh my God, I should conclude. We've looked at how the steel pan started as a simple everyday object and grew into the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. Now let's just recap, right? We will recap what we have learned. First, we examined the early beginnings of steel pan, where everyday items like buckets, bottles, spoons were transformed into musical instruments. Next, we explored the rise of the oil drum, which marked the turning point in the steel pan's evolution. Finally, we discussed how the steel pan became a cultural symbol and eventually the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. The steel pan evolved from everyday objects like buckets, pots and pans, bottles and spoons, to the industrial waste oil drum that gave birth to the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago, showcasing our rich and cultural heritage and innovative spirit. I would like to thank each and every one of you for listening. So the next time you hear that rhythm song of the steel pan echoing through the streets or from wherever you are not just hearing music. You are hearing a story from the people that is full of resilience, that is full of creativity. It is from the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Steelpan is not just an instrument. It is our history and a sound that unites us. Thank each and every one of you for listening.